Captain Derek Stone hurled the jammed M4 rifle at Emma Cross. "Take it, Secretary. At least pretend you know which end shoots." Stone's voice dripped with contempt, cutting through the explosions outside FOB Saber's perimeter walls. Emma caught the weapon with reflexes so natural that Martinez, the young private crouched beside her, had to look twice. Her fingers swept across the safety selector with a movement he swore was more professional than their drill instructors. The alarm sirens had started wailing at 1,500 hours. FOB Saber wasn't much to look at. A small forward operating base housing 65 souls in Iraq's Anbar province, surrounded by concrete barriers that now seemed pathetically inadequate against the 180 insurgent fighters converging on their position. Emma had been at Saber for 7 months, quietly filing reports and keeping to herself. The other soldiers knew her as the soft-spoken staff sergeant who typed faster than anyone else and never complained about the 115-degree heat. What they didn't know was why she unconsciously checked wind direction with loose sand every morning, or why her old dog tags bore serial numbers that had been deliberately worn away. "Cross, get your skinny ass to supply and grab more mags," Stone barked as mortar rounds began walking closer. The captain was 6 feet 4 inches, built like a linebacker. He'd made no secret of his opinion that women belonged in support roles, preferably stateside. "Sergeant Cross is our dead weight," he'd announced during yesterday's briefing, loud enough for everyone to hear. The first wave hit the western perimeter at 1,515 hours. Insurgent fighters poured over the ridge line like angry ants, their war cries mixing with automatic weapons fire. Emma watched Stone directing the defense, his movements increasingly frantic as reports crackled over the radio. Something made Emma pause as she headed for the supply bunker. A sound beneath the chaos, the distinctive crack thump of a Dragunov sniper rifle. She tilted her head slightly, calculating trajectory from the sound delay. 950 meters, she murmured to herself. Northwest ridgeline, probably behind that cluster of rocks. "What did you say?" Martinez had followed her, clutching his M4 like a lifeline. The kid was 20, fresh out of boot, and his hands shook. "There's a sniper, northwest ridge, 950 meters out. Tell Captain Stone he needs to shift 3rd Squad 25 meters south, or they'll be sitting ducks." "How could you possibly know?" "Just tell him." The young private sprinted back to Stone, who was screaming into his radio for fire support that wasn't coming. Emma watched the exchange, saw Stone wave Martinez away dismissively. The distinctive crack of the Dragunov sounded again. This time, a soldier from 3rd Squad spun and dropped, clutching his shoulder. Stone's eyes went wide as he realized the female desk jockey had been right. "Tower 2 is down. They're inside the wire." The panicked voice over the radio made Emma's blood run cold. Inside the wire meant the insurgents had breached their primary defense. By the time Emma made it back to the command post, the situation had deteriorated into barely controlled chaos. Insurgent fighters were pouring through the breach in the western wall, and Stone's defensive line was crumbling. "Fall back to secondary positions." Stone's voice cracked with strain. He spotted Emma crouched behind a concrete barrier. "Cross, what the hell are those magazines?" Before she could respond, he noticed the rifles slung across her back. "What are you doing with those?" "You qualified expert on PowerPoint, not rifles." An RPG streaked overhead, exploding against the communications antenna. In a momentary lull that followed, Emma heard it again. That distinctive sound pattern that made her spine tingle. Not just random fire, but directed, coordinated. Her eyes swept the ridge line, muscle memory from another life taking over. "Southwest," she said quietly. 8 degrees, right of that burned-out technical. He's got to be there. Stone grabbed her shoulder roughly. "I don't have time for your guessing games, Secretary." He thrust his personal M4 at Emma with a sneer. "Dear, let's see what our paper pusher can do with a real weapon. Try not to shoot yourself, Princess." Emma took the rifle without comment, her hands automatically beginning a function check. The bolt carrier was fouled with carbon buildup. A quick inspection revealed a classic double-feed jam. "It's jammed solid," Stone laughed harshly. "Just like your brain when you try to think tactically." But Emma was already moving. In 9 seconds, she had the rifle field stripped to basic components, her fingers flying with speed that made Martinez's jaw drop. She cleared the offending casing, reassembled the weapon, and performed an immediate action drill that looked like muscle memory perfected over thousands of repetitions. "How did you?" Martinez started to ask, but incoming fire sent them all diving for cover. When they looked up, Emma had already moved to a better position, her body flowing from cover to cover with an economy of movement that spoke of extensive combat experience. She settled into a stable shooting platform. Colonel Rodriguez's voice crackled over the command net. "All stations, this is Sabre 6. Air support is 20 minutes out. We need to hold until," almost as an afterthought. "Who's calling wind corrections on this frequency?" Emma had unconsciously keyed her radio while calculating bullet drift. Her voice, calm and professional, had been providing real-time wind calls and enemy positions. Rodriguez's voice changed, became uncertain. "Say again your call sign." But Emma had already switched frequencies, her attention focused on the southwest ridge. Through a break in the smoke, she'd spotted what others had missed, a figure standing slightly apart from the fighting, surrounded by bodyguards, gesturing with unmistakable authority. "I've got eyes on their commander," she said quietly to Martinez. "Southwest ridge, approximately 950 meters. That's impossible. You can barely see the ridge, let alone identify." Radio antenna on his back, 3 guards with RPGs flanking him. "He's directing their mortar teams." Emma's voice carried flat certainty. "In about 45 seconds, he's going to order them to shift fire to the operations center." True to her prediction, mortar rounds began impacting near the ops center exactly 45 seconds later. Stone, who had been close enough to overhear, stared at her with suspicion and fear. "How the hell could you know that?" Emma didn't answer. She was busy calculating wind speed, distance, elevation changes, and the unique ballistics of a damaged rifle. The math came as naturally as breathing. "You're not really going to try to—" Martinez watched her settle into a prone position. "That's 950 meters with iron sights and a foul barrel. Nobody could make that shot." Stone came charging over. "Cross, what the hell do you think you're doing?" The sharp crack of Emma's voice cut through his tirade. "Captain, either help or get out of my way. People are dying." Something in her tone made Stone step back involuntarily. Her usually soft brown eyes had gone cold and flat. As her tactical vest shifted, it revealed something that made Martinez gasp. A scar on her right shoulder, circular and pronounced, with radiating lines spreading outward like a starburst. The kind of mark left by thousands of hours with a rifle stock pressed into exactly the same spot. Wind full value right to left, gusting 6 to 8 meters per second, Emma murmured, making minute adjustments to her sight picture. Her breathing slowed, fell into a rhythm that seemed divorced from the battle raging around them. Rodriguez's voice over the radio stopped Stone's protest. "All stations, enemy commander identified on southwest ridge. We need immediate suppression on that position or we're done." Emma smiled grimly. She'd already calculated for the bent front sight post, the foul barrel, the way the afternoon heat created shimmer that would throw off point of aim at distance. Just as she reached the breaking point, the rifle jammed again. The click of a dead trigger sent ice through Emma's veins. The enemy commander was already moving. Without conscious thought, Emma's hands executed a tap-rack-bang drill with violence and precision that spoke of muscle memory forged in crucibles far from this dusty FOB. The forward assist slammed home, and she was back on target. Time dilated. Between one heartbeat and the next, Emma found that perfect intersection of breath, sight picture, and trigger press. The damaged M4 bucked against her shoulder. 950 meters away, through dust and smoke and chaos, the enemy commander's head snapped back in a pink mist. His body crumpled with the boneless finality that comes only from a perfect central nervous system shot. For 4 seconds, nothing changed. Then the enemy radio exploded in panic chatter as their coordinated assault collapsed into chaos. Insurgent fighters who moments before had been pressing their attack suddenly found themselves leaderless, confused, pulling back in disorder. Holy mother of... Martinez couldn't finish the sentence. He was staring at Emma with the expression of someone who'd just watched magic. Stone's mouth hung open. Impossible. Nobody makes that shot. Not with iron sights. Not with a damaged rifle. Not at 950 meters. Emma was already moving, transitioning to her secondary sector of fire. "Contact left, 250 meters, she called out, engaging targets with controlled pairs that found their mark with monotonous regularity. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the command net. Outstanding shooting. Who made that shot? Stone keyed his radio, his voice uncertain. Sir, it was Sergeant Cross, the admin and CEO. The silence stretched for several seconds before Rodriguez responded. Say again. Did you say Cross? Affirmative, sir. Staff Sergeant Emma Cross. Rodriguez's next words were barely audible. Phantom? After all this time? It can't be. The distinctive whoop 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 of rotor blades suddenly filled the air. Two black UH-60s materialized from the heat shimmer, flying fast and low. They flared hard over the FOB, door gunners already engaging targets on the ridgeline. Emma's eyes tracked their approach, noting the lack of unit markings, the modified rotor systems. She knew these birds. More importantly, she knew who flew them. Operators in black kit fast-roped down with speed that made regular infantry look like they were moving in slow motion. Navy SEALs. The cavalry had arrived, but Emma knew this was no coincidence. One of the operators, a master sergeant with graying temples, paused when he saw Emma. Even through his ballistic sunglasses, she could see the recognition, the disbelief. Within minutes, the combined firepower had broken the insurgent assault completely. Enemy fighters streamed back over the ridge lines, leaving their dead behind. As the dust settled, a third helicopter appeared on the horizon. A command bird with communication arrays bristling from its hull. It circled once before setting down. The man who stepped out made Colonel Rodriguez snap to attention. Major General Marcus Kane, commander of Joint Special Operations Command. The kind of brass that never showed up at a tiny FOB unless something monumentally significant had occurred. Kane strode through the carnage with purposeful gait. He stopped in front of Emma, who had risen to attention despite the rifle still in her hands. Master Sergeant Cross, Kane said quietly, using a rank that made Stone's head snap around. Or should I still call you Phantom? Emma's facade finally cracked. For years of hiding, of pretending to be nobody, of filing papers and keeping her head down, all of it crumbled in the face of that call sign. Sir, I'm just admin support now. Your contract was voided the moment you picked up that rifle, Kane interrupted. He pulled out a tablet, swiping through classified files. Operation Desert Wraith, Fallujah. For years ago, you and your spotter held off 150 insurgents for 18 hours while Delta Force extracted a captured pilot. Stone had gone pale, his legs visibly shaking. The story was legend in special operations circles. The official report listed you as Kia, Kane continued. Imagine my surprise when Quantico's AI flagged a routine marksmanship qualification that matched your shooting signature exactly. Then today, someone at FOB Sabre just made an impossible shot that saved the entire garrison. Permission to speak freely, sir? Kane nodded. I requested the discharge. I requested the new identity. After Desert Wraith, after losing Thompson, I needed to not be Phantom anymore. Emma's hands stilled on the folder. Connected how? Kane's expression was grim. The enemy commander you just neutralized. Signal intelligence indicates he was trained by the same network that set up the Desert Wraith ambush. The revelation hit like a physical blow. You're telling me the shot I just made, that wasn't random? Kane shook his head. Nothing about today was random. Someone wanted to draw you out to confirm you were still alive. And now they know, Emma said flatly, which is why I need you back on active status. You're the only operator who's faced this network and survived. Emma Hayes, administrative specialist, was dead. In her place stood Master Sergeant Emma, Phantom Cross, one of the most lethal snipers in American military history. Kane checked his watch. The bird leaves in 20 minutes. Pack what you need, Phantom. It's time to come home. As Emma boarded the black helicopter, she turned for one last look at FOB Sabre. Soldiers lined the landing pad, some saluting, others simply staring. They'd witnessed something extraordinary. But as the rotor spun up, Emma wasn't thinking about legends. She was thinking about Thompson, about Desert Wraith, about debts unpaid and justice deferred. She'd hidden for 4 years, tried to bury Phantom beneath paperwork and anonymity. But some things refused to stay buried. 950 meters, a damaged rifle, one chance. In the end, that's what it always came down to. One shot, one opportunity to make a difference. She'd taken that shot today, saved lives, revealed herself to enemies who thought her dead. Now, those enemies knew the truth. Phantom was coming for them.